Yo, peace family. So I got done watching this video by Vlad Rokavita about Mauro Biglino, and the premise of the video is that the Bible does not talk about God. Well, you would have to watch the video for yourself, so I gave you the title. Vlad Rakavita, I guess I'll also tag him, possibly, if I post this video. And Mauro Biglino. So Mauro Biglino is I guess what's his subject? Not really. The subject is, the Bible doesn't talk about God, so he's the object. I don't know. I'm not going to restart this video. I'm just trying to more so anchor like where I want to guide my thoughts. I don't want to focus upon the man. I want to focus upon the context of what he says. So I'm going to focus on the actual subject matter given. I like this premise and I like this idea to an extent. The extent I would talk about openly, because I'll focus far more on what I do like rather than what I don't like. What I don't like is that this is very okay. So this book isn't just about one period of time. This book is covering literally thousands of years of history. So I like that it's mentioned and it's stated that. I think why the Bible is very hard for white people is that it existed before they existed. It existed before white people were on the planet. So they're still not the most populous people on the planet, So the context of this book, the context of understanding, is this idea that this book is attempting to propose that there's only 6,000 years of human history. What I love about Mauro Biglino's his research, I guess, his conclusions, his revelations, is just as there are amendments to the American Constitution, there have been amendments, there's been changes, there's been corruption with the people that have controlled the narrative that the Bible says. What's said very early on in the video is that they don't even actually know what the original Bible says. The mastery of Hebrew or Aramaic isn't even there to even discern. So the entire idea is based off interpretation. The entire idea is, and it's honestly very poetic and very beautiful in a way. Kind of like if you've ever read the book The Giver, I can kind of put it in the context of that. If you have read the book The Giver, from a neutral perspective, let's go about this. And the way that The Giver attempts to give all of this to the receiver, and how painful it is, and how traumatic it is to know the truth. So everyone else is living a lie. Everyone else is living in whatever they're living in, because they're living under what he proposes in this is that instead of the context of this being, because if you have actually read the book, even if you're reading it within the translation to your language, which is, again, the best discernment possible of what the original text says, if someone can learn something from Star Wars and they can learn something from The Hobbit or from Game of Thrones or from Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey, I think you can learn something from the Holy Bible, no matter what the translation is. So if you take it for what the book actually talks about, he's 100% right. The book isn't just sitting there talking about God. There are parts in which God is communicating in a supernatural way, a 1,000% paranormal way to, for instance, Noah and the flood. That is definitely, in fact, the Bible talking about God, 100,000%. But the majority of it, especially the Old Testament, especially the New Testament, it really is just talking about humans and their relations to other humans. It is indeed talking about God kings, people that propose themselves to be God, and in the context of what this period of history is kind of like, you have the Babylonians and Nimrod, aka Gilgamesh, if you ever read that. And you saw what kind of person and what kind of man Gilgamesh was like in his own book. You know, it's that guy versus everybody else. Or against, like, honestly, just the people that he rules over at that time. So if you're talking about the fall of Israel from the southern kingdom, I believe it's the southern kingdom from the northern kingdom. Do not quote me on that. Again, you should read it for yourself, 100,000%. But it's mostly talking about the relationships of man with other man, and how those that have this God on their side always rise above those who do not. But within the time that is there, the times are cruel, the times are brutal. And I think in a lot of ways, it's more of a warning, you know. When I was thinking, like, before I saw this video, and while I was, like, listening to it early on, I was thinking, like, you do have to have a great deal of understanding of atheism before you can truly embrace religion, because you really have to understand and familiarize yourself with the people currently living around you in the current times that we are in, and how they actually think, and that they do not have a God in their life. Versus you in your position, and what they're trying to teach your wife, what they're trying to teach your kids, if you're a woman, what they're trying to teach your husband or teach your kids. You know, you want your kids to be the next Elon Musk, not necessarily that guy, but you want to have success. You don't want a system in which everything is already set up against them. And that is indeed what the Bible talks about and discusses. It talks about these systems in which we live in, generation to generation to generation, from the Babylonians to the Sumerians to the Egyptians to the Romans. You know, these emperors were learning from other emperors how to control people, how to manipulate people, how to control war, how to lead armies. These men weren't learning how to garden, how to farm, and in fact, in most cases, they knew nothing about that. But so much of society is geared towards, and this is no shot, this is no offense, but he did not make the Heroes of Black History list, so I don't really have to worry about mentioning him. LeBron James, for instance, because I did mention him in another video in a more positive type of light. But you know what? I'm not LeBron James, but I have my own field. You know, I'm never going to be good at basketball, and God bless the man. But I would honestly feel, with the little bit of, you know, notoriety that I have and how stressful it is for me, I would imagine that he would like to just play basketball. I would like for that to be the focus, and he would probably prefer a life in which he is paid well for his ability, but he's paid off of endorsements. He's paid off of being this super celebrity role model figure. And it's honestly like as if the amount of money that he receives is equal to the stress that he endures. It's very curious to me because I was watching something with Myron Reed, and I do have it in here, and Myron Reed was discussing God's kingdom versus Satan's kingdom. And when you really look at it from this perspective, you really do just have people that are looking towards this as God's kingdom, looking for freedom, looking for profits, looking for abundance, looking for life, you know, looking for new life, looking to be reborn, to be redeemed. Just because you made a mistake in the past doesn't make that your future, you know, that type of mindset. But it's your perspective of those people is given through the people that abuse them and the people that hate them, and the people that leech off of them, and the people that are convincing themselves that they don't even need these people. And it muddies the entire waters. It destroys your entire perspective of both sides. It's honestly like that episode of Rick and Morty where they go to that therapy session, and it's like your perspective of this person is such a more destroyed, perverse reflection of yourself, honestly, in some ways too. But it's not how that person really honestly is. You know, Satan's kingdom is slavery and kidnapping. It's wages. You know, you have to get your own flour. You have to sow your own seed, and you have to give it to the kingdom at the end of the week, every single week. You know, you owe the kingdom labor. The kingdom doesn't owe you wealth. That type of mentality. It's lack. It's death. And in many ways, you know, this is my perspective, but I feel like I don't think white people can believe in the Bible. I don't think they would have been able to, and I think this is part of what they attempt to teach us. The Bible doesn't cover what happened after it was delivered to the Europeans. That's who it was meant for. Because after Europe got the Bible, you have the creation of the Illuminati, the creation of all these people that are essentially going, you know what, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me what I can do with my body. You're not going to tell me what it, you know, and then they go off and they do everything they can to break the Ten Commandments. So these are the people that reach the highest places in society, the people that typically break the Ten Commandments. But when you have the people that do reach those same levels with the conviction of God on their side, who is the scrutiny placed upon? It's not placed upon the person that was sucking dick and doing this and flipping tricks to get to where they were for success. Now that person just disappears. The person that got there because they worked the hardest and they want the profits of their labor, the God-fearing person, the person that has God within their life, that is the person that is scrutinized. That is the person that is criticized. Because the ultimate question for most of these people in Satan's kingdom is, why can't you just take the money and be quiet? If they're robbing somebody, why can't you just take the money and be quiet? You're at a job that's abusing you, why can't you just take the money and be quiet? You owe somebody money, just take the job and be quiet. Just be quiet. Master's talking. Yeah, your master's talking. So do you listen, do you disobey? Do you question who made you my master? More than black people were enslaved. So the Bible isn't just meant for black people. There's a literal map in here as well I'd like to show you of the areas in which the Bible talks at a literal level. And I think that's really just kind of what the focus needs to be. I don't want to mess up my Bible. This is my grandmother's. God bless her soul. She is no longer with us. I'll read to you in a second what it says, because I'm pretty sure that you weren't able to see it, but you can always press pause, screenshot, and zoom in, or something like that. Okay, so I will read it for you for a second. The nations of Genesis, so this is given to us. Lud, Gomer, and honestly, it's very specific. So this is where civilization would have started. So you're looking at Italy over there, like an accurate representation of Europe and Italy. You're dealing with Egypt, Arabia, so Saudi Arabia's there. Persia doesn't really go beyond that. So according to most studies, anthropologically, life started in Africa. So you're kind of looking at I think there was an unfair bias in there just a little bit. This is just a little bit, But it comes from specifically Asiatic Africa. It comes from this beginning place of the world, ironically, where the United States has been bombing recently, almost to erase, a lot of the evidence of God, because if your culture is killing and stealing and destroying, it's bombing, it's warfare, it's instigating wars, it's inciting, it's assassination. If your entire culture's way of life, if you're looking at, okay, so who defeated the Babylonians? Who defeated the Romans? It was the Visigoths. It was the Vikings. It wasn't like well-polished English gents, There's a portrayal that people give off, and then there's what they would actually do to you. Some people live in alignment, but kind of like the culture that they're from is putting on airs, faking it till you make it, but making it is usually killing the person, stealing their shit, raping their wife, and then cutting the head off their kid. And that's what this book tells you. So it's more so telling you what kind of people that you're dealing with. You're dealing with people that advocate killing a baby within its mother's womb, dehumanizing the mother, dehumanizing the baby, so that they can sell the unborn fetus for profits. You're dealing with people like that. And then these people are so sick in their thinking, they will convince themselves that they are doing the right thing. Because if it's not a baby, and they're just birth givers. It's not a woman. What is that? What's a woman? That's a birth giver. Or a birth-giving person. You have to understand the people in which you're dealing with. You have to understand the world in which you are dealing with. And if you have actually read the Bible, the majority of people were not believers in God. The majority of the lands did not believe in God. It was a few people. And from that few, what would have been a mustard seed, because you see how big the globe is, and you see where God started. I just show you the map. You can look it up yourself. Get a Bible, look it up. I think you got the internet, man. Look it up. It's there. It's not really like this full understanding of what God is as the prime ultimate of all things. It gives you an understanding of the men who call themselves God. It gives you perspective on people that will rule over you as your God, and how they will treat you like the Egyptians and the Hebrews. You notice how all the Egyptian slaves did not want freedom. A small percentage wanted freedom. When that small percentage got freedom, they spent 40 years in the wilderness taking a pathway that should have took, it was either 4 months or 4 years, because they were disobedient to God, because they wanted to go back into slavery. That's what you're dealing with. So when they came to the new lands, were you going to fight for your freedom, or were you going to give up? I think the Bible is the ultimate political book. It's the ultimate history book. It's the ultimate book on psychology. It's the ultimate book on... It covers everything you will ever go through in life. Everything humanity could have possibly had dealt with. And then you still have a physical manifestation of overcoming. And the only people I've met who don't like that, and I'm not saying that they don't go to church on Sundays, I'm not saying that they're not spiritual, I'm saying people that reject it entirely. They come from the cultures that it warns you about. It comes from the people that it warns you about every single time. It warns you about their slavery. It warns you about their wages. It warns you about their lack. It warns you that they're a culture that worships death. You know, they tell you that they bring death where they go. It warns you. And then you decide to be enslaved to those people or to be enslaved to God. What that means is a lot of things to a lot of different people. I think if you're a young woman, which I am not, for that struggle is, do you serve your job or do you serve your husband? Do you serve your job or do you serve your family? Do you serve your job or do you serve yourself? Do you serve your children or serve your husband? Do you serve your children or serve yourself? You serve God. You serve God, and God is going to instruct you the order in which the things you need to focus on is. Because if you don't focus on, if you focus too much upon yourself, it's very hard to expand beyond that. If you're focusing upon all this and someone got to reel you back in to focus on yourself, think about how much more you're pulling back into yourself rather than only thinking about yourself and attempting to give from there. It's just not going to work. That's why you have to train yourself to think about other people. For young men, do you work for yourself or do you work for another man? Do you work for yourself or do you work for your family? Why are these notions different, So I think we place different values upon this. Do you work at all? You gotta work. You gotta do something. Just for your own well-being, even if just for your own psychological well-being, like just find something to do. Even if you volunteer and like you get a lot to do with doing work acts, you can do work exchanges and just go out and like do that kind of shit, just for the experiences. Because it's the same thing. It's like guys go out to the military, guys go out try to be celebrities. We do this kind of stuff because if you have basically what is called like a big city mentality inside a small town, those are the guys that start a fucking car sales business. Like you take over, You become too much for that town almost, to the point that people either love you or they hate you. And that becomes the same type of thing when you're looking at, It's one thing when you're surrounded by other people that believe in the Bible, and you're surrounded by other people that are reliant upon this idea to live their life, to create a social contract, to create an ideal world, to create a utopian society, but we do not have that. We're having people who are going outright to say, not only do I not believe in it, I'm going to make fun of you for believing in it, I'm going to shame you for believing in it, I'm going to kill you and persecute you for believing in it, and if you try to rise against me, I'm going to play victim, and I'm going to come against you even harder. That's what you're dealing with. When you look at the life of Jesus, there's a discussion of whether or not he is Joshua, who was spoken of early in the Bible, because the translation of Yeshua to this text would be Joshua. That means he would have been a warrior who repented. It was very factual of a lot of guys who've gone through war, a lot of guys who've done combat sports, a lot of guys who lived a violent life. They go to war, you come home from war, and you never want to do it again. And there's a certain type of madness in the men who go to war and keep going to war and keep going to war and keep because they've dehumanized the enemy so much, because their humanity has been taken away so much. They've broken so many commandments. The warfare is the only lifestyle that they know at this point. And when you have centuries upon centuries upon centuries, millennia, in fact, of people that only know slavery, they only know warfare, they only know stealing, they can't believe in the Bible. How hard is it enough for a child to admit they were abused than would it be for the youngest generation of a bloodline of murderers to admit that they are murderers? To admit that the war in the Middle East was completely unnecessary. The war and the Cold War was completely unnecessary simply because they did not have any other ideas of what to do because they killed the people that taught them how to survive on the land. I think if you look at things far more from the perspective as if just how people look at you as if you're stupid. So I'm pretty sure that if you're listening to this far in the video in this conversation, you more than likely, to some extent, agree with what I'm saying. You somewhat believe in the Bible, and you're looking for deeper understanding. The people that I've met that outright reject the Bible, that outright reject the notions of religion, I'm not going to accuse them of having like these dark. I'm not going to accuse them of having done anything dark. So I was going to say, I'm not going to accuse them of having these demons in their closet, because my notion of that is you did it. You know, if you have demons in your closet, you did the thing, you're guilty of it, and that is your inner soul, that is your inner being rifing and scratching at the doors, you know. The reality of all of it, the true wanton reality of it all, you're dealing with evil. You're dealing with people that don't have any rules. Because if someone tells you that they don't believe in the Bible, what they're telling you is that I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in rules. I don't believe in the law. I don't believe in you. I don't believe in me. I don't believe in anything. You're dealing with a ticking time bomb. You're dealing with someone with low self-esteem more than likely. You're dealing with someone who feels like they have to achieve and do all this extra type of shit to have any, like a slave. You know, how does a slave stay? You work yourself to death. You pray to God that they protect your family. You pray to God they don't rape your daughter and rape your wife when you die. You know, you pray to God they don't sell your child off into slavery. Now it's just a lifestyle for us. I have to write this dissertation about slave codes, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I was an American or African descendant of slavery, African descendant of American slavery. To have someone say, the Bible is not talking about a God. The Bible is talking about a government of people who call themselves God. Because that's the same shit I went through, man. That's the exact psychological shit. And the people that call themselves God, like Animal Farm, they don't believe in a God. But every single time, if you read the book, if you listen to the audio books, yo, shout out to the dudes who did the Bible audio books, yo, the one from Bible.com is good. Shout out to the dudes that do the Bible audio books. Yo, y'all are everything, man. For real, read the audio books, but if you read the book, you listen, every one of these people that call themselves God, they fall. They fall. Every person that lives in sin, they die. They fall. It's always exposed. It always comes to light. And when you try to convince yourself there is no God, there is no sin, there is no vice, I can do no wrong, and you create, dig this, man. If you're in a room of 5 people and one guy thinks like that, is it that big of a deal? if he's willing to kill the other four of you while you're sleeping, yes. If he thinks he's the shit, he's the best, and he's all, no, it's not. If he thinks that because he's the shit and because he's the best, that he has to depopulate the world, and there's just not enough resources to go around, and you're not rich because you're lazy, it's not because I'm not paying you more, be satisfied with your wages, that person becomes the enemy, This is a very long video. I would love to keep going on and 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 on, but it's like tiring me out, and I gotta do a moving job tomorrow. To have you in my shit, stay and forgot my business though, but I brought it up, so my bad. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening if you made it this far, and check out the other videos. If you did make it this far, I guess make sure to like. Please subscribe. The majority of people that view my content are not subscribed. You're just kind of passing by, which is cool. Do your thing, zero pressure. YouTube has never been like a super huge focus for me, but it's getting to the point where I really think it would be mutually beneficial to make more YouTube content. So I could stop having these long-winded conversations with only my partner, and then I can have like these long-winded conversations with complete strangers on the internet.